Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Christ in Me with Addie, where we seek to live out a John 3:30 life. John 3:30 says, "He must become greater and greater, and I less and less." Let's be real. In today's world, it can seem impossible to live out what the Bible calls us to do. Not only can it be hard to understand sometimes, but finding the time to read the Bible, to understand the Bible, to know the Bible, it can just be overwhelming. So I created this podcast so we could walk alongside each other, share some of our stories and struggles, but also where the Lord is bringing us, so that we can encourage one another and stay rooted in His Word. It's my prayer that you walk away from each episode saying, I know that is Christ in me. I know Christ in me. So let's get into today's topic. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Christ in Me with Addie. I'm so excited for today's episode because, as you know, we all get to scrolling on Instagram, which is like my pitfall when it comes to 9 p.m. at night. And I found this video that was so crazy. I saw this girl doing body weight squats in a hospital gown in a hospital, and she was talking about how she was diagnosed with cancer. And I just remember getting goosebumps when I saw this part of the video that said, "But God." And then she just started listing off all these Bible verses about how the Lord is our strength, how the Lord is our healer, how the Lord will prevail and bring us through. And I just knew in that moment I had to message her. I had to hear the rest of the story. And I had to hear about, she talked about how God like fortified her faith in the midst of such a trial, in the midst of such a low and hard place. And so today, guys, I'm so excited to welcome that very woman to the podcast. Her name's Nicole Smith. Welcome, Nicole. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into this crazy story? Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you live, and maybe how you came to believe in God.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Addie, for introducing me. And I think we connected for many reasons, but one of those reasons was fitness and our mutual, shared interest in fitness. And I'm so glad we did. And this is my first podcast, so forgive me for any mistakes here. But yeah, I guess where did you leave off? What was the question again?
It's just funny how you just said that because it's true. Instagram totally plugged you into my niche because of the fitness and the God thing and having an amazing story. So praise God for that. But I just asked, tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you live and what your hobbies are. We know fitness is one, but just what would you like people to know about who you are aside from your story?
Okay, so a little bit about my background. I was born in Newport Beach, California, and now I don't live too far from Newport in Rhode Island. So it's just funny how all that works out. And I love being near the beach. It's one of my favorite things about where I live. I also have been competitive with sports in the past, not bodybuilding like you have, but I played Division 3 field hockey, and I helped to take my team to their first NCAA Final Four
Wow.
game. And so I really enjoyed fitness in my whole life. And um, I went to business school. I went to Babson College in Wellesley, Massachusetts, which was a great school. Learned so much, but I think something that led me, back to the faith
Mhm.
was fitness. So it's just funny how it all works out. But yeah, I would say similar to you as well. I started out as a Catholic, and one of my friends' moms was my CCD teacher in high school, and uh, randomly he invited me one time to go to this non-denominational church, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're Catholic. What are you doing? But I went with him. I said, hey, why not? And I really enjoyed the service, and I really enjoyed being around a lot of younger people as well, and feeling that connection to God again, because I had been putting off church, and um, I hadn't been making Sunday holy like I should
Yeah.
have. And I hadn't been spending my time studying the Bible, or doing things that would help connect me to God. And I think that experience led me down a path to finding God again. It's funny how soon after that experience, and trying to find my faith again, I kind of fell uh, into illness. And it's funny how timing works out. It really seems like timing is everything, and God has a greater plan, and we just need to listen. But my past was, Catholic. My papa was a deacon, and like you, I came back to the faith through a non-denominational approach.
Wow. We do have so many similarities because my dad is a deacon. Three of my uncles are priests and one's a bishop. So like super Catholic, I always say. But
Oh
yeah,
wow.
they're still very devout. Like I'm so grateful for them serving the Lord. But for me, ultimately, same thing. That non-denominational churches was just God's avenue for reigniting my faith as well. And you said something really interesting. You said, I want to get to your illness and talk about that because I know that's such a big part of your story and what that viral video that you posted was about. But you said that fitness actually helped like foster or grow your faith. And I'd love to hear how that came to be.
Yeah, in the past, I think in some ways fitness has hurt my faith,
Mm,
uh, which is, surprise because I just said it fortified it in many ways. I sometimes would exercise as like punishment, but there were many times where I would work out or be playing sports, and I could feel a divine presence.
yeah.
And I felt closer to God. I felt disciplined. I felt like I was doing something that was deserving of His praise,
Mm,
and I felt like I could push past boundaries that where I had blocks in my head where I didn't think I could push through them, and it really helped me to understand that sometimes we believe that there is an end or a limit to things, and we really don't know the end. We don't know our limits, and we don't know what will happen when we pass, because we Jesus is the only one who's been able to go through
yeah.
that and tell
Yeah.
us about it. So um, I think being close to him in those certain instances uh, kind of ignited my faith in some ways.
Mhm.
But ultimately, it was, going back to church that led me back to him. But I don't think I would have gone back to church if I didn't still have that like disciplined practice
Yeah.
of working out, staying involved in sports, doing something that was what I felt like greater than myself.
Yeah, that's so good, and honestly, I can really relate to that. There were so many moments where I felt larger than life, unstoppable, like, especially in the gym, just hitting PRs and things like that, being so in control of my food and, like, how I looked, and then it wasn't until that I started competing and feeling, like, the depravity of food and just, when that discipline comes in with really low caloric intake, I just felt how human I was. And it's crazy how many times I felt God's presence so heavily just in the gym. Like I could zone everybody else out and just focus on God and be so grateful for the ability to move my body. And, but like you said, it's a fine balance. There were times where fitness
Mhm.
was my downfall, and there were times where fitness also really grew my faith.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about your illness. And when did you find out that you had cancer?
Yeah, well, kind of piggybacking off of what you said, we're not just indestructible. And
Yeah.
I feel like in this world where clearly dopamine is at our fingertips, it's really great to slow down and appreciate things that we don't have the chance to appreciate when we're just moving through life too quickly.
Yeah.
And it's better to be present with God fully than only giving him half of your attention.
Yeah.
And so I think that my illness began because I was living so hard that I was dying. And
Mhm.
that sounds funny to say, but I really was going so fast through life, trying to do everything. I, like I said in my posts, I ran marathons. Um, I think I was just trying to fit in after college and after giving my all to a sport. Um, but more than that, I was lost and I didn't have a job at the time that I really loved. And I wasn't turning my head to the Lord and heart to the Lord. I wasn't opening up. So I think that my illness, while it wasn't too long ago, it was in 2022, the spring of 2022 is when it began. Um, well, it wasn't too long ago. I feel like I've grown so much since. But yeah, it started then. And people have asked so many times, what were your symptoms? And
Mhm.
it started with stomach pain, like a dull ache in my stomach. And I had mentioned it to some friends, and they said, you should really go to the doctor. And finally, I listened to one of my close friends who um, said, stomach pain isn't something to take lightly. And I think it was truly something greater than ourselves speaking through them and telling me to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and they said, oh, you're okay. Like, take all these, laxatives and different pills that can help you go to the bathroom. I thought I had a blockage.
Mhm.
Well, it kept getting worse to the point where I couldn't work out after work. I would have to spend my nights in the bathroom, and I would feel a sharp pain whenever things would move in my intestines. I would
Mhm.
feel a sharp pain in this one area, and I realized something was really wrong. And I actually reached out to my friend Tom, who had led me back to the faith, and I said, Tom, can you say a prayer for me?
Yeah.
And we prayed together. Um, and he also, I left him a voicemail. And when he got the voicemail, he also prayed via voicemail. And it was very encouraging because through, my hardest times, someone was there kind of supporting me in some way that they knew would best support me. And finally, I got a call, and the gastro was on the phone and said, hey, we have an opening, because they couldn't get me in for
Mhm.
I think 6 months. And they said, hey,
Wow.
we have an opening, can you come in tomorrow? And I said, of course I can. I needed to make time for that. I wanted to
Yeah.
get into the gastro. I knew something was wrong. So I went in, and they had me get a colonoscopy really soon after. I did that, and I woke up to what wasn't much of a surprise by this point, saying that I did have cancer.
Wow.
And it was not a blockage, it was indeed a tumor blocking the majority of my intestine, of my sigmoid colon. Uh, it just so turns out that this is really strange, but unusually, I had an extra long colon, and the surgery that they eventually performed took out about a foot of colon. So I actually have a normal sized colon now, which is
Wow.
really weird.
That's
But
like a God thing in itself, that God knew you needed an extra long colon because part of it would get taken out, right? That's
I
pretty
know, I was
crazy.
like, and they said, you would have never known this if this hadn't happened. But I think it was, all the time that I spent feeling lost, feeling lonely or hopeless, and living too fast, that eventually led to this diagnosis. I think there was a lot of inflammation. And on a spiritual level, it was my path back to God.
Wow. That's crazy, this story, and it keeps going deeper.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about in your post, I wrote it down because I didn't want to mess it up. It was so good. You wrote that cancer became a catalyst for spiritual renewal and healing in your life. And I just want to hear, like, how did God help you get there? Because I'm sure you grieved your diagnosis at first, right? How did that turn into being a catalyst for renewal and healing in your life?
Interestingly, it was more shock than grief. However, through the process of healing, there was a good amount of grief. But the catalyst for change and healing really was when I was sitting in the hospital before surgery. I had a stent, and there's so much more to this story, and I wish I could go into more detail. and maybe a follow-up podcast or something. But yeah, I had a doctor who put in a stent, and I was sitting there trying to prepare myself for the surgery. And in that moment, I just decided, I felt something come over me, and I just kind of decided in that moment when I was preparing for the surgery, that my life was going to change. And I felt like I wasn't alone in that. And I didn't feel that loneliness that I had felt before. And I felt
Yeah.
like I had a reason to live. I took that video like that night.
Mhm.
And that's that video that the video started out with of me squatting. And I was just, even though I was in so much pain in the hospital about to get surgery, I had this zest, this renewed zest for life. And I knew that everything was going to be okay. And I had to, you know, uh, fill my cup with all the good
Mhm.
things. So meanwhile, my own father was having a vivid daydream that my nana came to him, and she passed a little more than 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And she told him that everything was going to be okay, and she was looking out for me. And I don't know how much I believe of the story, but he told me that after I had surgery, and I believed him. And I
Mhm.
was always very close with my nana, and it renewed my faith even further. So it was
Yeah.
it was that night that I took that video, and that's really that was the catalyst for change, was the surgery. And after I got that tumor removed, I felt like I was on this new path.
Yeah. I love how you had a stint and you were preparing for surgery. And I can honestly say in that moment, I probably would have been in self loathing, but you said no squats. I just think that's amazing. But I love what you said about having a zest for life and just having this. They say, I don't know the statistic, but I know this medically because my brother is in med school right now. But he talks so much about how people who tell themselves and think positively that I am going to heal, there's something about that that actually does help them achieve healing. And I think that take it a step further from just positive thinking and give it over to God, and you're unstoppable at that point. So, um, I was looking through the comments of that video. I think it got like 22 million views, which is just nuts. But I was looking through the comments and I could not believe how you're a woman with cancer who just said like what she went through, what she's overcome with God, and some of the haterade on this post. I was like, "Oh my goodness." But you responded so gracefully, so kindly, and I just wanted to bring up one. One person said, "Thank the doctors, not a fictional character." And so my question to you is, how did you stay so grace-filled and still give the glory over to God even despite those terrible comments?
Ooh, this is a good one. I think at some point the video just got so kind of out of control that I just let the comments run instead of
Yeah.
responding or deleting or whatever. But yeah, there were good amount of people who didn't believe or thought that I was wrong in what I said, and I don't feel like I was wrong in what I said. And I actually think I made more people think about their relationships with God as well,
Yeah.
with Jesus. And so, to that comment directly, I tried to be graceful, and I tried to think, what would Jesus say?
Yeah.
And there's so much peace that that brings with it. And while I can only channel so much of that at my
Mhm.
current, you know, like level of spirituality, I tried to channel peace and goodness in my answers.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say something negative too when something is wrong in their own life. And I really tried to be considerate of what everyone was going through. I
Yeah.
tried to give, a virtual hug to
Mhm.
many people who commented if I could.
Yeah.
And while I can't reach out and go hug all those people, I tried my best via words.
Yeah. And I love that. I hope that for anybody listening, this podcast just sounds like a virtual hug. If you're going through any sort of sickness or trial or anything like that, but I can relate just because I had a video I absolutely hate saying this, but I've said it before. If a video goes viral, it's typically because people love you and they hate you. They're either agreeing with you and they're like celebrating what you're saying, or they're trying to correct you and condemn you for not doing it the way that they would do it or not believing what they believe. And so I posted this video. It was kind of just funny, but I was praying to Jesus. And I know you're not supposed to like ask the Lord for like signs per se and like challenge him or test him, but I was just joking with God and I was laughing. I was like, God, I just need a sign from you today. Like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do. And that day I saw a sign on a street corner that I frequent and it literally said Jesus. Like it was a sign that said Jesus that was like hand sprayed in letters. And I just started cracking up laughing in my car, like, okay, God. You delivered. Thank you. And I just posted that being funny. And the amount of people who commented saying like just nastiness was wild to me. And so one of the biggest comments I got on that though is like, yeah, sure, God answered your comment for a sign, but yet he's not answering the call of someone asking to be cured from cancer. And so I ended up making a response video to that, answering the question of why does suffering exist if God is good? And I really wanted to ask you your take on that. You were diagnosed with cancer, but you still sit here and say God is good. And I would love to hear how he got you there, even through everything that you've been through.
Oh, that's such a great question, that I've thought about too much. Um, but yeah, I don't know why some bad things happen to good people.
Mhm.
But I know in my case, in particular, it ended up being, I think, one of the best things that ever happened to me. And it sounds crazy to say, because I have side effects from the chemo. I missed a year or two of life. It
Mhm.
felt like, but because I was brought closer to God, my life has changed for the better. And I
Mhm.
hope that can resonate with your audience. And I hope that they can understand that, um, through pain, there can be purpose. And
Yeah.
God can take any situation that you're in and use it for good. And I've heard many people say that, and it really is true. In some situations, they're not good, and it's easy to look at the glass as half full. But when you look
Mhm.
at, or easy to look at the glass as half empty, you
Yeah.
know what I mean. But when you look at it as half full, you will be rewarded.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that it's a tough question because it's a great argument. Why do kids get cancer and die
Mhm.
from cancer? And I don't have the answers. And there is a spiritual realm that I I don't have all the answers about. But when you trust in God and you believe in His word and you put your faith in Him
Mhm.
and you believe in yourself and the spirit within you, there's something powerful about that. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm here today telling my story. And I had a reel go viral and help many people who are going through the same thing.
Yeah. You seriously don't know the impact that you're having though. Maybe you do, but I just want to say it because I, working in ministry, have seen the grief very firsthand of people who have lost people to cancer, of people who have been diagnosed with cancer, or just tragedies in general, and just seeing this like process people go through of understanding why. And so for you to sit here after having gone through cancer yourself and still say God is good, that is such a like light to the world. Like that's amazing. And honestly, I'm just going to be really honest. I hope that if I ever experience anything like that, I lead with the same kind of faith. Like I pray that I have that faith. So I just want to say, I think your story inspired even me, not having gone through any sort of needing for a healing journey necessarily in my physical body. But I wanted to ask, what would you say as words of encouragement to fortify someone's faith who is going through just this absolute like trauma trial period?
Oh, I think I'm going to bring up a Bible verse here,
Okay.
just because I feel like it's necessary.
Yeah.
But I, I actually didn't own a Bible a couple years ago, and
Yeah.
only recently did I become the owner of this. It's a New Living Translation
Yeah.
study Bible, and I really like it. But I have it right here. I have it open to what I wanted to say. Um,
Amazing.
okay, so this is Matthew 11:28. So it says, "Then Jesus said, 'Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest.'" And
Yeah.
just that part, that's
Mhm.
that's where someone who is struggling, no matter if it's a diagnosis or the loss of a loved one or
Yeah.
whatever has, you know, happened in their life, they can say, Lord, I come to you and I bring you all this worry and grief and doubt
Mhm.
and my burdens. And he says, I will give you rest.
Yeah.
And so he really is a place for someone like me who went through this experience to put my faith in and lay my burdens on. And
Mhm.
he's given me so much more in return for doing that.
Yeah.
So like you, I've seen a lot of signs over time that continue to, like you say, fortify um, my faith. But yeah, just when you open your eyes and you see those signs and you put your faith in him and you read the Bible or you go to church or you say something kind or do something kind for someone else, you're fortifying your faith
Mhm.
in Jesus Christ
Yeah.
and in God.
That's
So
good.
So I hope people can take solace in that.
Yeah, and what I love about that verse is it says weary and burdened. So weary could be like your physical body is weary, is broken, is cancer struck, is whatever. Burdened, I think of that personally. I resonate with that more in like my mental space. Like I'm worrying over finances or worrying over my purpose, my next steps, the plans. And God promises us rest. And I think when it comes to people kind of attacking in the comments or not understanding, it's because they don't understand that supernatural rest and peace that comes despite our circumstances. I think it's in First Thessalonians it says give thanks in all circumstances. Or the
Mhm.
words of James, he said consider it joy when you face trials because the Lord is strengthening you for endurance and this is maturing you in the faith. And so I just think your story is a prime example of that. It's probably not something you ever would have asked for. It's definitely not something I'm sure you wanted because you had to slow down, you had to focus on your healing, focus more on God, rely even stronger on Him. Um, but yet He brought you through, and here you are, like singing His praise, which I just think is amazing. So,
Mhm.
I have a couple more questions for you. But do you have any other Bible verses that really helped you during that time? Just experience that rest and that supernatural peace.
I would say for anyone looking for that,
Mhm.
um, my reel is actually based off of a template that another girl created.
Mhm.
And her name's Kaylee, and she's also very religious. And I would suggest that you go through each of those verses if you're experiencing
Mhm.
something that's burdening you or causing you unrest in your life, and go through them and read through them and see which ones resonate with you. That's what I
Yeah.
did when I saw her reel. That's what inspired me to create my reel. And yeah, I hope more people look to the Bible to actually see, what can help them and how they can become closer to God
Yeah.
through His teachings.
Yeah, that's great. So I'd love to pick up on the story. You kind of talked about, going through your surgery and squatting in the before surgery room. And then where are you at now? Where has God brought you on your healing journey? If you're open to sharing where you're at in your story.
Yeah, so my healing journey has not been a straight line, but I don't know many people whose journeys are straight lines
Mhm.
to the end, straightforward at all. But I did have surgery, which was successful. And then I went through chemo for for a good chunk of time and
Mhm.
was under close surveillance every 3 months. Now it's every 6 months. So that's where I'm at in my cancer healing journey.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say that my faith has just continued to grow stronger. Obviously, there were times when I doubted and I struggled grieving wise.
Mhm.
I would take long walks down to the beach and I would struggle with my thoughts, but I feel like I have remained victorious over those thoughts because I've had God in my corner, and
Yeah.
um, I hope everyone leans on God when they're going through a hard time. But
Yeah.
during chemo, it was really hard. It's really hard to stay positive when you're going through chemo.
Mhm.
Like my videos working out during chemo, it was hard to see them. I love to video myself in the gym and
Mhm.
see what my form looks like. And
I do
like
it
you,
too.
like you,
Yeah.
I wanted to
I
be
do
an
it too.
influencer at the beginning, but then I just
Yeah.
kept taking them anyway, just for the fun of it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just saw my workouts get progressively uh, harder for me over time, and
Yeah.
it was hard to see myself watch myself suffer in the gym.
Mhm.
But I stayed consistent with the gym, and while I did slow down in many other areas of my life, I actually feel like God gave me the strength to continue working out. They say that retaining muscle helps you fight cancer and helps you
Wow.
through chemo. So I do think that was a really important part of my story, continuing
Mhm.
to work out through everything that happened. And I didn't show as much of the hard times. Of course, we like putting our highlight reels out there on the internet. But I did show that video from the hospital. So you got a glimpse, but not the full story. There were
Yeah.
many more times of hardship,
Mhm.
especially trying to stay healthy. Um, and especially when you're going through chemo, you don't feel great. You feel a little nauseous, maybe a
Yeah.
lot nauseous. You don't want to eat or drink
Mhm.
healthy like you should be. But I really feel like I've tried to continue healing after chemo to the best of my ability.
Mhm.
And it really is a mind body, it's the whole picture. You mentioned balance, and it really is about balance and finding that balance and not living too hard, but also you can't do nothing. You have
Yeah.
to, be disciplined and uh, work hard to be the best version of yourself. And
Yeah.
um, I was not very balanced before cancer, but I feel as though I've become more balanced after cancer. And
Wow.
a resource I would definitely recommend people look for or seek if they're going through cancer would be Chris Beat Cancer. He is
Yeah.
also a believer. um,
Mhm.
I love his positivity, and that's the number one thing. But he also recommends, healthy eating, sleepy
Mhm.
enough, having a spiritual, um, just being spiritual, and all those things really are the cornerstones of living a
Mhm.
healthy life.
Yeah.
So I really would highly recommend him for sure. But yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy healing through chemo,
Mhm.
but I did do things that I never thought I would have done. I love horses. I actually own a horse, and brought him back to health, and was able to find a great home for him. And so I did that through chemo. I
Mhm.
was exercising this horse on a line, like a lunge line, they call
Yeah.
it. Um, while I had my chemo bag attached to me.
Yeah.
And um, that was a part of my story I never anticipated being a part of it, because I thought I was going to slow down. And well, like I said, I did in many areas. That was a fun story of healing where I didn't just experience healing, but this another animal did as well with
Yeah.
me, and that was beautiful to see God's creatures, and their healing, and what we can do to help
Yeah.
animals who can't help themselves,
Mhm.
as well as people, just being a good person and doing the right thing, and making someone's day. It doesn't cost you anything to make someone's day
Yeah.
or help someone. But yeah, I think those were big parts of my healing journey. Lastly, my fiance, and I didn't anticipate getting engaged, but I knew that was part of the whole catalyst change my life experience that I had in the beginning. Was I didn't want kids,
Mhm.
and now I do want kids and a family, and that changed when I was in the hospital.
Wow.
That all changed. And I just so happened to have uh, this very cute, handsome boy from high school that I had a crush on, but never talked to, reach out to me over Instagram. And we talked ever since. And he's been with me through the entire experience, supporting everything I do. And I've been
Wow.
his biggest fan as well. And we've just grown together. And he has not been confirmed, but he's working on that before we get married. That's something that's really important to him. Um, and just to go to church consistently, that's also important to him. But he's been with
Yeah.
me a number of times, and it's beautiful to watch someone else grow in their faith while you fortify your own.
Yeah. I always talk about like I'm a patchwork person. Like God literally patched together all these like broken little ripped pieces. And I think so many of us are also patchwork people. Like we all are, honestly. Nobody's perfect aside from Jesus. And so it's amazing how he can create life even when you least expect it, create these moments of joy even through suffering. And I really like what you said about how life isn't just a straight line. And it really resonated with the sermon that my pastor, Pastor Tim Moore, I'm at X Church, and I'm going to totally credit
Mhm.
this to him because it's his thought, his illustration and imagery. But he said that if life was a straight line, what is a flat line in vitals? It means you're dead, you know? But when you see someone's heartbeat on a monitor, you see peaks and you see valleys, and some peaks are higher than others and some valleys are deeper than others, but that's life. The evidence of a valley doesn't mean that you're dead. It just means you're at a low point in your life, and it's generally followed by a peak. And so I just think it's amazing that even through valleys you still found little peaks through the horse that you rescued, through getting engaged, through not, I think a lot of people, again, I think I would sit and wallow. I'm just being honest. I wouldn't be out there looking on for love, swiping through Tinder or anything, And so I just think it's amazing that you didn't let life stop and you still knew your value and who you are as a beautiful daughter of God. And I think Satan tries to take our pain and tell us that it's a block, that it's a stopping point. And too many of us take these like permanent pain markers and accept them as the end, as finality, but yet God always has the final say. God always writes the last chapter, and I can tell he's still writing a beautiful story for you. So it's amazing. Also, we're both
And you
horse
as
girls. This
well.
is getting weird because I had horses growing up as well.
Well, you can come and hang out with mine whenever you'd like.
That sounds great. All right, you guys are going to see Nicole and I selfieing on horses next time on the next episode. Oh, well, that's
Stay
awesome.
tuned.
Nicole, could you share with everybody where they can find you if they want to connect with you or just see the video we've talked so much about?
Yes, absolutely. So on Instagram, my name is Nicole Ella Smith. Um, and I'm sure you can find me if you just type that in. It's Nicoleella, and then Smith, Smith. And then I don't have a website or anything like that, but I would encourage your viewers, your audience, to also check out a couple more people. I mentioned Chris Beat Cancer, and I
Mhm.
would highly recommend checking him out on Instagram. When I say that, people think I say crispy cancer, and
Crispy
his
cancer.
name is yeah, his name is Chris, and he
Yeah.
beat cancer. So I hope
Yes.
that that comes across
Yes, I'm
the right
actually
way.
very familiar with his book. So, what I'm going to do is link it below in the show notes on this episode. There's also another book called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way that talks about, when you're just hit by the shocking things in life that you don't anticipate. So, I'm also going to link that book below in the show notes for encouragement for others.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I would just say continue to encourage others with your podcast and everything you do. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thanks for being here. And thank you guys for tuning in to Christ in Me with Addie. And I will see you next time.